Good evening, and welcome to another preposterous episode of Diatribes from the Voice of Doom. Now here's your prosaic and prostate host, Voice of Doom. Hello. Got home early from work today, and I didn't go out and do stupid things, so I figured I'd do a diatribe. I can't make any promises on its quality because I didn't plan it. Just watched a bunch of crap, and I'm just going to comment as I see fit. And if it comes out, it comes out. We'll see. Okay, Petri dish. Brussels talking to the NATO faction, saying how united they all are. So that's great. I usually get mad after I watch Petri. I did get a little angry when he started bringing up domestic issues that are total lies and misconceptions and injustice in every shape, way, and form. But he has to bring them up because he figures that's what got him elected, is just idiocy. But I don't know what they're going to do. They say you better not use chemical weapons. Okay, we'll see what happens. It's getting kind of to a tipping point where, things escalate, and that means escalating from where it is now. All right, you watch what happens. There's a lot of bombs out there and a lot of possibilities. And the war is dragging on. It's almost a month long. So people are getting war weary. But we'll leave that subject aside for now because it's just massive destruction, and we'll wait for the disaster. Let's move on to subject 2. Okay. Hearing that really doesn't need to be heard because it's a foregone conclusion that this person's going to be confirmed by whoever confirms things, because they have a Democratic majority in the Congress right now, and they are in lockstep. They are just jackbooted, goose-stepping automatons that would never, ever, ever think of getting out of step, especially when it comes to a Supreme Court justice that will be in there for life. So one thing leads to another. I didn't want to watch Corey, whatever the hell his name is, Spartacus, because he's disgustingly sickening. And to watch him gives me a stomach cramp because he's so full of it. And the fact that he should know that many people who vote, who actually pay attention a little bit, know he's full of it, and he knows he's full of it, so he looks really like foolish to talk about how he's struggled. How every person that has a certain shade of skin, I don't care. What if you're pale, but both your parents are African American and you just happen to be born kind of with pale skin? Maybe it's a little kinky hair, but nobody really knows what you are, do they? But you're oppressed because of the genetic makeup of your bloodstream. So it's very hard when you talk about what you look like, who you are, who you feel you are. It's very confusing. I'm sure I can put it all together, but I didn't write anything down, so I'm going to have to be brilliant, like off the cuff, and that sometimes doesn't work out. But perception and conception and appearance, nature makes an entity. Life is very complicated. People are complicated. And we will go into more of that, but, people are oppressed for various reasons. And most people are not oppressed. I hate to be the bearer of bad tidings to everyone in a certain sector of society, but most people can do what they want, and it's what they do that's going to make their life. People make their own misfortune. That's obvious. And you can be born in a dire situation, and perhaps that's going to be a really hard disability to deal with. Say, for instance, you just happen to be born to two alcoholic parents who were abusive, and you get beaten all the time from the time you're an infant. Yes, I'll call that oppression, because you have no choice. So I will say there is oppression. But there may be people that make the best out of that. Maybe that makes them stronger. Maybe that makes them into monsters. Maybe one person dotes and one person beats, and you get Schicklgruber. So human psychology and dynamics of the family are very complicated. So to start talking about, I'm going to break down and cry because I finally see, well, we won't say what the person is. The person has a dark complexion, and that's all I can say about that person, according to her own definition, who's going to be ruling on things in the Supreme Court. Now, as far as the Supreme Court goes, it's been politicized pretty much since I can remember. I remember not much, because when you're in 4th grade and 5th grade, you're not really looking at, Supreme Court hearings or rulings. It's just, you might have to do it for current events, but it's like I really don't understand. But I don't think the Supreme Court functions as it should, because it should be completely and utterly without any political influence. It should just look at what laws we have on the books and then say, does this new law or this new ruling or this new edict comport or conform with what is on the books? Or does it totally, something new that totally, is not just? Certain segments of society are left out if you make rules for one. So to say something from the 70s like, black people don't get enough, they've been oppressed, so let's have, affirmative action, that we give more weight to a person based on their race than on their actual ability, because things haven't been fair. Now you take that to the Supreme Court and you go, is this right or not? Okay? And then they have to decide. But now the way they have the stupid-ass court set up is like, you're chosen for your opinion. We know what your opinion is going to be because that's why we chose you. And it's obvious on both sides. I guess I begrudgingly will say that this Chief Justice is John Roberts, or whatever the hell his name is. It's probably the fairest, because you can't really predict what the hell he's going to do. I really was pissed when he said that Obamacare was a tax. That really pissed me off. But then, in retrospect, it's like, well, that's the way he saw it, and that's the way the vote went down. Now, whether it was all preordained, who knows? All this stuff could be like, it's going to happen, and we're going to make it happen, and you're going to make it happen, or we're going to do things to make your life a living hell. That's how the government works. So, he voted that way, but he's fair. He's kind of in the middle. The other guys are going to vote this way, and the other guys, this hearing was way worse than Kavanaugh. Come on. I don't even want to spend more than 10 more seconds on that. That Kavanaugh thing was the most disgusting display of lying, cheating, slander, libel, just total mud slinging, dragging someone through the mud. You're guilty before there's even a charge that we can come up with. horrible spectacle. And it's just one more black mark, well, I'll say black mark, sorry, on the D side, because they've been so heinously sinful that there's no way I could ever vote for them again in my lifetime, because I only got about, I'll live 60 more years. I probably got 20 or 30 more votes, but I'll never, because I punish them every time they sin, and they've already reached the point of no return where it's over. Unless it's Tulsi Gabbard, I'll vote for her. So let's move on to why I cannot say what that person sitting at the desk being grilled by the Senate. Oh, that's another thing I wanted to mention. These hearings are nothing more than just grandstanding. I mean, yeah, they bring up this and that and this and that, but it's mostly them pontificating and having their little day in the sun. People are going to watch them. It's politics. Democracy is a failure. So, you know, we should start with that a priority premise, that democracy is a failure, and it's obvious why. Because nobody knows anything. You let everybody vote, so all you have to do is be the most popular, and then you proceed to be corrupt to the bone and lie your ass off. That's government in a nutshell. I could teach political science. It's like, well, class is over, you know, I'm going to let you out early. Do it in 2 seconds, but we don't know what that person is, because that person doesn't know what that person is. So I guess Petri just failed in his quest to nominate the first, whatever the person is, to be on the Supreme Court. Because we don't know for sure, do we? So, it'd be funny if, you know, the Supreme Court justice has a sex change. I mean, it'd be kind of hilarious. Whatever. Sex change, gender identity. People are getting all up in arms. This one lady has to say one little thing. Can you define what a woman is? And it's like, well, no, that's not in my purview. So that starts a whole big brouhaha. And everybody's like, obviously there's men and women. All right, obviously there's men and women. Some people want to look a different way. Some people want to be a different way. Some people have different feelings that they want to project it in a different way, and just let them do it. Now, I've already told you about sports, because that's a delineated division of endeavor, okay? Where there's men and women. Except maybe bowling. I think they could integrate bowling. I don't see any problem with that. But as far as every other sport, mostly swimming, golf, tennis, it's delineated for a reason. And you can look at that swimmer and come on. Hulking monster. And I don't put her down for that. I'm just saying it's not fair. I don't want to go back into that. But I will say at the very end that I do remember a certain time in history, long before anybody on this planet was born, that they had a tennis match between a semi-retired, older professional tennis player who was male at the time when they had males against the top female player of the day. And I'll use female in the traditional sense of the word. And it was called the Battle of the Sexes, and it was a big deal. And I don't really know if it was staged or not, but she won, and it seems reasonable that she would win because the guy was like 55 and she was in her prime. And she was a good tennis player. She was Billie Jean King, and he was Bobby Riggs, and he jumped over the net. He didn't want to wait for her to jump over the net to congratulate. So I don't know if that was a final, I'm still the man around here, but it was an interesting time, and it was kind of laying the groundwork for what we're looking at now. But what we're looking at now is much more complicated. And I just remember Bobby Riggs and Billie Jean King, and I don't know what her opinion is on transgender women in sports, but I would think that she would be along the lines of Martina Navratilova, because it's just not fair. Anybody with a mind can see, and every other thing I think everybody can try. I don't think there's any other endeavor, realm, or venue where it matters if you're TG or GT or TS or TV or whatever, or whatever a male used to be or whatever a female used to be. So it was a long one, and I said nothing, just a recap of today's idiocy, and I'll expand more later. I don't even know if I'm going to post this. It's pretty boring. I'm sorry. I'll do better next time.